Hello friends, Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to my channel. I am Dr. Mariam Hussain and I make videos related to dentistry and medicine. The main aim of my videos is to highlight the high yield points and the core concepts of the topics related to dentistry and medicine. So today's video is about the development of tongue, as you guys already know by the title. So one basic tip that I would like to share with you guys is that whenever you are going to start studying the embryology, you need to basically know the anatomy of that area. Okay, like for example, if I'm talking about the development of tongue today, so you guys need to have a complete know-how of the anatomy of tongue. Okay, so that you guys know that which structure comes from which part. Okay, which area. So first of all, I'll be talking about the anatomy, the gross anatomy of tongue. So okay, now tongue has basically two parts. This is the anterior and this is the posterior part. So anterior part is basically 2/3 and the posterior part is 1/3. And this is a V-shaped sulcus that basically divides the anterior and the posterior parts. Now the anterior 2/3 is also basically divided in the midline by a median fissure or median groove, and this groove is present externally, and the anterior 2/3 is also divided internally by a fibrous septum. Okay, so these are the palatine tonsils. This is the posterior 1/3 of the tongue, the pharyngeal area, the pharyngeal part, and this is the anterior 2/3, which is the oral part. Okay, this is the pharyngeal part and this is the oral part. So let's now move on towards the development. So I'll be discussing the development in two parts. The first part will be the formation of anterior 2/3 and the second part will be the formation of posterior 1/3. So two basic points that you need to know before starting that is that when does the development of tongue starts? So this basically starts or begins by the end of fourth week. You need to know this, that it starts by the end of fourth week. And the second thing that you need to know is that it comes from first, second, third, and fourth pair of pharyngeal arches. Okay, all of these four pairs of pharyngeal arches are involved in its development. So moving on towards the formation of anterior 2/3. Okay, now there is a very important landmark which is foramen cecum. Okay, foramen cecum is basically, let's imagine foramen cecum is over here, and this is the anal area, this is the mouth area. Okay, mouth side and the anal side. Now anything which is present towards the mouth, we always call it as rostral. It is present rostral to some reference point. Okay, and anything that is present posteriorly or towards the anal area, we call it that it is present towards the caudal end. Okay, so now the anterior 2/3 will always form rostral to the it will always form rostral to the foramen cecum, and the posterior 1/3 will always form caudal to the foramen cecum. So this is really important thing that you guys need to understand and put this in your mind for always, because this foramen cecum is really important landmark. So now the first sign for the development of the tongue, the first sign that you see and you say that the tongue development has started is the the elevation or the swelling that occurs in the midline of the floor of the pharynx. Okay, now you have a floor of pharynx, the primordial floor of the pharynx, and in the midline you have a triangular swelling which is basically present in the midline, and it is the first sign of the development of the tongue. Okay, this now what happens is that two lateral swellings start to develop on the sides of the median swelling, and these two lateral swellings are known as lateral lingual swellings, and these are known as lateral lingual swellings, and this swelling is known as the median lingual swelling. Now these two swellings start to overgrow the median lingual swelling and they meet in the midline. Okay, and this midline, this area where they meet, is demarcated by the the midline groove that we talked about in the anatomy, and the fibrous lingual septum, which is present internally between the two halves. So this is a simple way to remember the formation of anterior two-thirds of the tongue. So now let's talk about the formation of posterior one-thirds of the tongue. So for the development of posterior one-thirds, as I already told you, that there is going to be foramen cecum, there is going to be a foramen cecum, and there is going to be, the anal end, and towards the anal end, like towards, like posterior to the foramen cecum, there is going to be the development of the um, two swellings. Like this is going to be copula, and this is going to be the hypopharyngeal eminence. This is the copula, and this is going to be the hypopharyngeal eminence. Now, copula is a smaller swelling, and this basically originates from the second pair of pharyngeal arches. And one thing I forgot to mention is that the anterior two-thirds develops from the first pair of pharyngeal arches, and copula basically develops from the second pair of pharyngeal arches. Now, hypopharyngeal eminence basically develops caudal to copula. Okay, this is going to be more caudal to copula. This is hypopharyngeal eminence, and this is basically developed from the fusion of third and fourth pharyngeal arches. Okay, the third and fourth pharyngeal arches, and this one is just from the second one. Okay, so what happens is that the copula is overgrown with the hypopharyngeal eminence, and the hypopharyngeal eminence is what that forms the posterior one third of the tongue. Okay, this is what forms the posterior one third. This is foramen cecum, and anterior to this is the anterior two thirds. Okay, now let's move on to some more points that I need to highlight before we complete this topic. So the first one is that the line of fusion of anterior and posterior one is indicated by the terminal groove or the V-shaped sulcus. Okay, that we talked about it. This is the V-shaped sulcus, this is the anterior, this is the posterior part. Okay, now we will be talking about the second point, which is the muscles are basically derived from the myoblasts that migrate from occipital myotomes. Now, this is something very important. We need to know where the muscles of the tongue are coming from. Sorry, the tongue are coming from. This is occipital myotomes. Occipital myotomes give rise to myoblasts, and myoblasts in turn travel and migrate to the tongue, and then they form the muscles of the tongue. Okay, now there is going to be a hypoglossal nerve. This is the the major nerve that basically supplies the tongue muscles. So this nerve basically, it always accompanies the myoblasts and travels to the tongue, and then it innervates the developing muscles. So there is some change in the position of tongue. First, at the birth, the both the anterior and the posterior parts are present in the oral cavity, but by the age of 4 years, the posterior one third is going to descend into the oropharynx with age. Okay, that's it for today's video. I am basically deciding to make another part of development of tongue because development of papillae and the nerve supply of the tongue is remaining, and I want to discuss those in that video. So I'll basically try to upload that very soon. So till then, take care and thank you for watching. Have a nice day, and don't forget to subscribe my channel for more upcoming videos, and follow me on Instagram and share the video with your friends. Thank you.